And now, introducing tonight's main attraction. It's the Never Beens podcast.
We never had to film ourselves, but I definitely heard that there were guys that were putting the cameras like on the side of a hill and catching yourself running.
That was Glanch.
Yeah, no. I had to have Kylie film me doing like jump rope every day for my quarterback workout, and then I would have to the weightlifting was ridiculous. You had to film your last set of one exercise. So what was like dumbbell squat or dumbbell bench, you had to film yourself doing the last set of it. So I would some days I'm like, I don't really feel like working out today. So I'll just do one set and film it. And then that was my workout.
How would they know?
One set of max weight?
Yeah, they had no clue.
I'm sure nobody got hurt in the whole league doing that.
Yeah, it was so dumb. And do you remember, did you get remember we got like a stipend to spend on exercise equipment?
I bought a lot of kettlebells, and I bought a 9-hole pitch for baseball, but I used it for long snapping that I could snap into in my backyard. But we 100% use it for baseball all the time, and I very rarely snap.
My strength coach in Cleveland, shout out Dale Jones. By the way, welcome everyone. Got special guest and friend J.J. Jansen on this week. But my strength coach in Cleveland convinced me to get all these dumbbells, and then come to find out later, a bunch of guys bought a Peloton with it. I'm like, well, I would have liked to have done that. I wish you had, convinced me to buy a Peloton instead of dumbbells that I will never use.
Yeah, I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah.
My wife would have loved it. We ended up just buying a Peloton anyway. She's at 120 consecutive weeks.
That's impressive. I'm at 0.
I have shoes. I've done 0 Peloton workouts, but I have the shoes.
I used to do I didn't have a Peloton, but I would download the app and I would stream, because we didn't have a Peloton at this apartment we lived at. So I would stream Peloton classes on a stationary bike.
Alex Toussaint.
Alex Toussaint. Club bangers. He's the GOAT.
I didn't realize Peloton people became influencers. My kids were watching Is It Cake on Netflix, and one of the celebrity hosts or judges was known as actor, influencer, Peloton host. I didn't know that was a job title, but apparently it is, and very popular.
Do you know which one it was?
Please tell me Alex Toussaint.
It was a girl.
Oh.
Well, there's two. One girl is on College Game Day now, and the other one, and there's another one that's on Good Morning America, I think.
Real. So this is definitely a way to move up in the world.
They're celebrities.
I guess they are actors and actresses. I mean, Alex Toussaint works out for 20% of it. The rest of it, he's just screaming at you through the video.
Yeah,
they're a motivator.
Yeah,
you need more motivation. That's why you're not going fast enough on the bike.
Precisely.
Never works.
Yeah. Well, for the listeners, we're doing this a little differently this week. We got J.J. Jansen, long snapper, Carolina Panthers, and he's going to join us for more than just the interview segment. He's kind of going to join us for the whole episode. So, J.J., you're going to be included.
Give us an insight, and we can argue with him about analytics. And
yes.
I can't wait to ask you about some scenarios to do with that.
Some coaching decisions and situations.
Absolutely. This is a good week. Every week in the NFL, got a lot of stuff.
Namely, what the analytics says about the Fighting Irish playing the last 2 plays of the game with less than 11 players.
All right. Let's jump in.
It's not favorable for the Irish.
All right. So the coach, he said he didn't want to risk the penalty. When did he find out that they only had 10? Was it on the second down, or was it after that, leading up to the third down, the touchdown? Do you know?
I heard the quote. I didn't see the interview. I don't even know what penalty he's talking about.
Yeah, it would have just been offsides, right? And you move forward 2 inches.
Oh, jumping off sides?
No, I think he was worried if he ran a guy on the field that they would maybe get a free play or something. I guess. I mean, that's
like they would snap it quick if they saw the guy, because it was.
I'm not
I guess
sure.
the angle of the guy running on would be in their backfield.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. That makes a small bit of sense. But again, that was 2 plays in a row. And typically most coaches, now I know this is chaos, but most coaching staffs have somebody on the staff whose game day responsibility is making sure you're at 11 guys. Usually you're worried about 12.
Yeah.
But I mean, as simple as it sounds, like you literally have somebody whose job is it to literally count the players and make sure you have 11 people on the field. It's a bad deal to have 10 back-to-back plays.
I mean, I don't know. I obviously easy to sit here and second guess, but it's like, and he said on Monday or Sunday or whatever it was that they now have a signal for, like a defensive lineman to just reach out and touch one of the offensive linemen, just go encroachment so that, but I don't know. I mean, you try and prepare for all these situations. I don't necessarily know that that's one I've ever gone through to even, I mean, I'm not being on the defensive side of the ball, but I don't know that that's one that I've ever gone through where it's like, you don't have enough guys and you got to figure out a way to, without a timeout, you got to figure out a way to.
Well, what's tricky is too, like situational football is interesting in the sense that we were talking about analytics. Most of the data would suggest that for 58 minutes in the game, a defense is better off playing with 10 than even burning a timeout. Like it's not worth it because those timeouts are so valuable. But all of a sudden, to you guys' point, in the last 2 minutes of the game, it's a totally different situation. And so the rules that you might have played with for the rest of the game no longer apply. And we understand that as like, okay, this is a 2-minute drill, out of bounds rules, first down rules, all that stuff changes. But even just the rules by which someone would situationally operate, it changes dramatically. And it was interesting because with about 30 seconds left, I think it might have been a 4th down. The Irish took like what we used to call like a Kodak timeout. I think that was the name of it in New England too. And they just wanted to see what the offense was going to line up in. And I remember thinking like, I don't know that I'd want to have burned that timeout. If they score, you're going to want that timeout to go kick a field goal. What it turned out, that would have been a useful timeout on defense to have at the goal line. Hey, we got 10. Let's burn a timeout. They were out of timeouts.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't know that I thought of that. That's a good point. Like I never understood that either. Like taking you see what the offense is in, and maybe you make a different call, and maybe they make a different call. It's like it's just the same as basketball at the end. To me, it's like what are you actually gaining out of that? It's like a big what if scenario. What if they run a different play? What if they run the same play?
You're not really getting anything because once the defense takes that timeout, if I'm the offensive coordinator, I'm not lining up in that same formation, right? Or maybe you are. And then they think reverse psychology. So it's like
I think the defense is saying if they switch plays, they're going to their second best play for the situation, and that's a benefit. I appreciate those sorts of timeouts, but I think with 30 or 45 seconds left, I think it's too early. Like 7 seconds in the game, hey, this might be the last play. Timeouts are worthless once the game's over. I'm with that. But let's say on that 4th down, they threw and scored a touchdown, and now it's 27 seconds and you burned your final timeout. To your point, guys, like what benefit? They're probably switching plays, so you're not going to get necessarily a pre-snap advantage.
Yeah.
Sometimes those timeouts show up when it's a, hey, they came out in a look, maybe it's an unscouted look, and we want to talk about it. I'm fine with that. But that one, the one that Notre Dame used, it felt like let's let them get really close to snapping the ball, burn a timeout, and just to see what they're in. Not necessarily we're in a bad spot here. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, I mean the whole end of that game is wild. It's like and it's potentially one that will cost Notre Dame a shot at the playoff. It's like, and they should have won. They really should have won that game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
I've seen too many bad things happen on that field. My first start in the NFL was the Bush push game, and it was the same ending in that same end zone on basically an identical run. There just was nobody pushing anybody in the end zone, but it was literally just sort of like a duo. It ended up being a QB sneak, but just sort of like a duo push the pile in from the goal line. I've seen that. I've seen that movie before a few times.
Another like underrated thing that sometimes people don't think about is maybe the defense was gassed and they needed a timeout for that down. Because like if you're going hurry up and you're playing man in that scenario, you want your guys with a little bit of rest. But I mean, I don't think it's worth calling it. Just sometimes people don't think about that.
Well, if memory serves, they had like 12 plays in the drive, and like only 3, maybe 4 were successful. Like this wasn't like Ohio State was marching the ball down the field. The defense was largely dominating play by play. They just couldn't get off the field. You know, there's a pick, would have been a pick 6 that would have ended the game. They just dropped it.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think they converted a couple 3rd and longs. It was like they were in 3rd and 9 or 10, 2 or 3 times and converted. And then after the grounding is like they completed a ball down to the 1-yard line. It was just chunk plays after mostly good defense.
That's right.
Was it a fourth down or a 3rd down that they completed it to the little slot number 2 down to the like 5 or 4? Was that 4th down?
That was third. It was they called grounding, and then I think it was like 3rd and goal from the 19.
That's right.
Or no,
they got a
first down.
Right. It was like third and 15-ish.
Correct.
And it was like from the 19-yard line, so they could get the first, but they.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then they spiked it.
They spiked it. All right. So what happened? They subbed a guy out. I guess the nickel came out.
Maybe they stubbed D lineman and 4 came out and 3 went in or something like that. I don't.
I bet the nickel came out and they went heavy, and one of the D linemen just didn't go in. Who knows?
Well, moving on. Sorry for rubbing salt in
the
wound.
Glench, I got another question.
Okay.
To do with kind of that game with analytics. All right, hammer offense, JJ. Notre Dame. Glench and I had argued about this. I think you should have ran the ball. I don't care what the play call is, just run the ball all 3 downs. That screen they almost threw a pick on.
So as I was watching that drive, and you guys can speak on offense way more, like you need first downs. The problem was, so they get 2 chunk first downs immediately, which is great. They're getting field position, but they weren't burning time.
Yeah.
Right? So they got 2 first downs, but it only run 2 plays.
You'd almost rather 9-yard gains than 11-yard gains.
Exactly. And that's not the end of the world. But then the killer, and I said it, I just kind of blurted it out. We were watching it before our team meeting night before the game, but like I almost like blurted it out. I was like, on first down in the 3rd series of downs, they took, I think it was their only negative play of the game. And that became destructive because now you needed 1 first down to close the game.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're in 2nd and 15, whatever it was. Now you're in a tough spot because, to your point, Burse, like you'd like to run or easy completion, high rate of completion to keep the clock running, but you need 15 yards to close the game out. And there's not a real obvious situation. Now on the 3rd down play, I liked them throwing, and obviously I think that was the screen we were talking about, right?
They ran it on 2nd.
They ran a screen on 2nd. I like throwing on 3rd down because I know if I get the first down, game's over. So I want my best play to convert a first. Ryan Day actually screwed that situation up. He let the clock run instead of using their final timeout. And so when they got the ball back, it was like a minute 20.
Yeah. But he wanted that final timeout. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. I was going to ask, would you have called a timeout there or would you pocket it?
100%. You have to use, in my opinion,
a minute and 50 with, and these are, I'm speaking in generalities. I don't exactly remember how much time there was, but I'd rather have a minute 50 no timeouts than a minute and 20 and 1 timeout.
Because on offense, especially in college, but in general, offense can control the pace of timeouts. And if you're the trailing team, you want your timeouts to be worth 40 seconds, as much of 40 seconds as possible. So look at it this way. He doesn't burn a timeout. Notre Dame runs 40 seconds off the play clock and punts. He saves that timeout for offense.
Yep.
They're already running hurry up. So even if they complete a ball inbound short of a first down, they're probably snapping it. Let's say it's 20 on the play clock. A timeout saves them 20 seconds, not 40 like it was on defense. Not to mention the offense also has the advantage of penalties stop the clock, ball out of bounds stops the clock, first down pauses the clock. So you always, in my opinion, always want to use your timeouts on defense. And to Glanch's comment, like, I'd rather have time and no timeouts on offense than burn the time on defense.
So, yes, it maximizes your time in theory, like mathematically.
Sure.
But back to my point earlier about saving, like, I guess, stamina, you got to have a timeout if you can in case of a sack on a vertical pass play. Because if you take a sack and you're running verts, those receivers running back are, one, it's going to take forever. Two, they're going to line up gassed, and then your next play is screwed.
So what you're saying is the receivers need to be in better shape.
I mean, sure, but yes, but everyone says
we can't take
what's the number one rule in 2 minutes for the
quarterbacks can't take a sack. That's so.
Correct. But you got to save it for that scenario. I think it was the right call.
Well,
clearly it was the right call.
That
right.
Because they didn't run out of
logical fallacy.
Had Ohio State lost, they were out of time. They weren't out of plays.
But here's the chess move. They didn't want any time left on the clock to give Notre Dame the ball back. Sure. So actually,
that's way easier to control on offense.
What?
That's way easier to control on offense.
Hey, playing chess.
I have a little side note here because you mentioned this. Is there anything better than watching the end of a great college football game before team meeting on Saturday night?
It's great, and Coach Reich was awesome about it. I've had coaches that are like, all right, let's get in the team meeting. It's like literally the entire team is bonding over this game. And of course, I was one of those guys. We have Von Bell. He was obviously rooting for Ohio State. Tommy Tremble played at Notre Dame. Like 2 or 3 guys are super emotionally invested, but everyone becomes invested. And then of course somebody loses. And then that guy like me goes in a really sour mood, and everyone's making fun of me walking into the team meeting. It's great camaraderie building.
That never happens. That never happens with Wofford, I know. But
no. See, I get just to pick a side every time and just be a troll.
Like, a few times,
but the troll part is probably the best spot to be in.
Yep.
There's no doubt. I just that is an all-time, like, it's hard to explain, but just watching the game with the whole team in the meal room, like I think last year, Coach Belichick like postponed the team meeting by like 15, 20 minutes so we could watch the end of Alabama, Tennessee. And it was just back and forth. And it was it's awesome. Especially if you don't have a serious rooting interest.
Yeah, and Notre Dame's played enough of these sort of like late afternoon, evening games that I've been in that position. I don't know that Notre Dame's ever won when I've been in that spot. So it's always devastating. Like I'm sitting in the back of the room watching, knowing I know how this movie ends for me. But again, like you said, it's great camaraderie building. And it was good because we had chapel earlier in the day. So I think I was in a better mindset to handle the loss than if we hadn't had chapel yet, and I probably would have flown off the deep end a little quicker.
All right, real quick. Colorado, major dose of reality. Obviously, they're missing Travis Hunter, but major dose of reality from Oregon. I think I saw something. It's hard to buy into this stuff, especially early in the season, but whatever the ESPN's S&P Plus or whatever it is ratings, they're like all the way down to 79th again, which is like, they're like, again, and what Deion's done there's been unbelievable, but I'd like to get your thoughts on that. But it's like they're better at quarterback and receiver, and then everywhere else they're the same team, even after this entire overhaul.
Yeah, I think everyone got excited because we all viewed that TCU game instinctively as like, oh, they beat last year's national runner-up. But and TCU's ranked like 13th or something. I think preseason rankings are stupid because nobody knows how good anybody is.
especially in today's college football.
Today's college football, and every team's a new team every year. There's no telling what's going on. So I think we all kind of jumped on that. I mean, they looked good against Nebraska. I didn't think Nebraska was very good. So that didn't feel like a big win. And then they played Colorado State, who nobody thinks is good, to double overtime. I think the reality was they were 3-0 against 3 teams they should have beat, based on the talent we know that they've got at a couple key positions. But I think the early prognosis was they couldn't block anybody and they couldn't stop anybody's run game.
Yeah.
And that's what showed. And then look, football's about matchups. Like, that's what they got. They go on the road. It's loud. It's harder to communicate. I mean, you guys know as well as anybody, when you go on the road and it's loud and that stadium is off the charts loud, the only way you can quiet the crowd is to run the ball, slow the game down, take the crowd out of it. Soon as the crowd figures out that they can control the game by their noise, like we just played in Seattle, it was so loud. As soon as the crowd figures out that they can control the game by volume, it's
snowball.
It's hell on an offense, especially in the passing game, because there's so much extra communication that goes on when you're trying to throw the ball consistently. I wasn't surprised in the least. I'm still impressed with what they've done, but I don't think they're a top 25 team. I didn't think they were after any of the 3 weeks either.
Looking at their schedule, I mean, if they finish 7-5 this year, obviously I think their win total was like 3.5. So obviously it's already nearly a success. And
was it really?
Yeah, they're going to win another game. You would think. And
Vegas set their win total at
7-5 even.
Vegas set their preseason win total at 3.5.
I believe that's what it was. Yeah.
Wow.
And the reality is, and obviously all that stuff's getting adjusted, but I look at betting markets all the time because I think that's the most honest evaluation of teams.
Yep.
Yeah.
Vegas isn't in it to
promote
pitch a narrative or tell a story. Like, they're trying to get as close to as obviously are people wrong? Sure. But like, there's no extra motive other than getting it right in Vegas. So that stuff's valuable.
And what's interesting about that is they take the, like, I guess, feel good variable and put it in there. So that 21-point spread actually should have been closer to 24. They just knew people would pounce on Colorado and got sucker.
Yeah, in fact, that's a good point, because I was asking. I had a buddy who hopefully we'll have on sometime, who mentioned that he got Oregon money line for like -700, and I was like, those odds seem like decently good for a 21-point favorite. And he was like, well, there was so much money on Colorado that they had to shift the money line odds.
Yeah.
And they didn't shift it as much as they probably should have, because they were very confident Oregon would win.
Yeah.
The reality is, like, to you guys' point about those lines, like, Vegas is trying to get it right, but they also still have to run the business. Yes. But when it showed up that they were -21, I was like, okay, nobody thinks that Colorado is anywhere close to Oregon, like, at all, because to your guys' point, if anything, they're probably skewed it a little bit more towards Colorado just to make the money even, just because of the story. I don't think there's a lot of people in the country naturally putting a lot of money on Oregon in any game in early September. It's just not. They're not the national brand that Colorado has become, or USC or Texas or Miami or these other places that might get a little more national attention.
Mm-hmm. Burst, you got anything else there? You want to give us a Nebraska update?
Should we do our Rule update of the week?
Hey, we check in on Coach Rule and the Cornhuskers.
All right. At home, Louisiana Tech tied at the half 7-7, but he ended up squeaking out the win at home, 28-14. 2-2. We got to 500. With wins against Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech.
Is this a weekly segment?
Yep.
Yeah, I argued with Glanch that he's not a good coach and was overrated in college, and I don't think he'll be successful at Nebraska. Glanch thinks he's one of the best college coaches of all time. So I'd like to hear.
Whoa!
I'd like to hear. No,
I might need to hear this story a little bit better.
Is that an overreaction? I mean, I got receipts. I can pull them up via text, Glanch.
Best of all time?
I said one of.
I would love for you to find
You said
that.
his resume is up there with some of the greats.
I would love for you to find that comment. What I said was he's been outstanding in the past at turning two historically not very good football programs around. And he did, in my mind, an objectively good job turning Temple around. He has the winningest season in Temple history.
Yeah.
And turning Baylor around, in which he has, I believe, he has I'll have to go back and look, but he has 3 of the top 5 winningest seasons at both of those programs.
All right. What is Temple's mascot?
The Owls.
And
Correct.
what does an owl say?
That good one.
Hoot, hoot. Who cares? Don't care what he did at Temple. Now, the Baylor thing, I don't think is as objective as you say.
Because
we went through the
schedule.
His 10, was it 10 wins or 11? Well, how many wins?
This is moving the goalposts at its finest.
10.
I believe they were 11-3.
All right. I went through the schedule, and the only ranked team he beat was number 25 Texas at home.
Can't beat anyone that you don't play, Pods.
Okay, but he didn't. That's not impressive to me.
Hold on. All right. Does JJ want to weigh in? And then I'm done.
All right. Sorry, we could argue for hours on this. JJ,
I think these are fascinating. These are fascinating arguments. See, what I think Coach Rule did really, really well at both those places is he walked into 2 environments that obviously the program was kind of at lows for different reasons, but definitely at lows. And the thing that I've seen from going back and just kind of reviewing what he did was go get a bunch of really, really talented athletes and teach them football. So where I think his advantage was acquiring raw athletic talent and teaching them how to play. And in that, they probably were the better athlete team almost all the time. By the time year 3 came both at Temple and year 4, because I think he had 2 10-win seasons at Temple. And then the year 3 at Baylor, by the time those athletes kind of rose up to being juniors, let's say, they were probably the more athletic team in most of the games that they played. And then to Bursa's point about the top 25, who are those teams that he's losing to? Probably other teams that are wildly talented and wildly athletic. The Oklahomas, the Texases. What's that?
In Baylor's case, Oklahoma twice, both in overtime, and then Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, I think it was, or something like that.
Yeah.
So any of the good teams he played, he lost to.
Very diplomatic way of putting it, JJ. I like that.
I try to be as diplomatic as I can be. But I think what you end up seeing there is one of the things that I sort of learned in my time with Coach Rule in the NFL and then watching college is it solidified my belief that college coaching and NFL coaching are different. And I think sometimes we want to say NFL coaching is more challenging or college football is more challenging. I just think that they're different. And the rules required to be successful are different. And in the NFL, it's much harder to acquire talent. And there's a great, great emphasis on having schematic advantage versus other teams, because I really believe coaching from the standpoint of not from motivation, like we talked about with Dion. Dion appears to be an unbelievable motivator, but in the NFL, everybody's motivated. Everybody's trying to survive to the next week or trying to get that next contract, trying to get to the playoffs, trying to play in prime time. That becomes a motivation. So everybody's already got it. And teams, because of the draft rules, and you guys know I love the draft, you're disincentivized. In order to get better talent, you should lose. So it's a much different way of acquiring talent. Whereas in college, if you can get talent and win, you get better talent.
Yeah.
It's a much different way of orchestrating a roster. And that's why I think you see college coaches struggle in the NFL. And I think that's why you see NFL coaches go to college and struggle. It's just the rules to be successful in college don't necessarily apply to the NFL. And in college, I think there's a lot of different ways to win. In the NFL, you probably have got to figure out the quarterback. Or in the case of a San Francisco over the last 6 years, they've had a bunch of different quarterbacks, but the scheme is so quarterback friendly. We were talking about this with some teammates. Nick Mullins had a 4,600 yard season or maybe parts of 2 seasons, like 16 games, 4,500 yards in the Shanahan offense, because he makes it highly, highly beneficial for quarterbacks. It's why every guy there has some level of success. So it's either scheme or the quarterback. In college, you can win a lot of different ways, and usually the best talent's going to win in college.
Yeah. So with that said, he was able to, let's just put it like this. He was a good recruiter and developer of those athletes back in Temple and Baylor, correct? So
there's no doubt about it. Wildly successful. And then you look at the NFL, and he drafted a ton of really good athletes. Like, there's something called the relative athletic score. And if you kind of follow who we drafted for 2 or 3 years, they were all like elite athletes at their position. Like, there was definitely a model that he was following that was very successful in college.
Even at the long snapper position.
Yeah, we don't have to bring that up.
We'll talk about that later. But
I think there's definitely a model that he was trying to apply. I'm just not totally certain that in the NFL that model. I do think there's value to it. I don't think it has the same unique effect in the NFL that I think it did in college, especially when you're rebuilding college programs.
Yeah,
you need great athletes. In the NFL, every team's pretty similar talent-wise.
Well, that's what I'm afraid of with the new college football is that strategy might not be able to be applied.
I think that's a very fair criticism, and it's one that I've considered. He's gonna, I would imagine, at Nebraska and at all of these schools, I think they have to reevaluate their model for bringing teams in, because there's more free agency in college than there is in the NFL.
Yeah,
and I think it'd be very hard to be a coach in college that was kind of old school disciplinarian. You've really got to be good with the relationships, that the kids feel loved and cared for while being coached hard, because I think everyone's naturally looking for, I want to go someplace with more money, rightfully so, or I go someplace that maybe I'm treated better. And look, I'm 37 years old. When a coach coaches me hard, I still get my feelings hurt. Like, I don't think that stuff ever goes away.
Right.
18-year-old kid getting coached hard, their feelings are definitely going to be hurt.
Bye. Yeah. Yeah, that's all good stuff. Shall we dive into the NFL?
Another good week.
We got to do a quick Wofford update. We lost again at VMI, so 0-4.
Not running the wing T anymore, right?
No, we're actually running more of like a spread run option spread. I don't know.
Virginia Military Institute?
Yes, VMI.
Okay. SMU lost 34-17 to the Frogs.
Dang.
We
do not get the iron skillet. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, my wife, as you guys know, my wife went to TCU, so obviously I was on that side of that rivalry. Yet another week of lore rubbing it in. The TCU won and Notre Dame did not. But iron skillet, kind of an interesting trophy.
Honestly, no clue where it comes from. I feel like I should know this, but I have no idea where it comes from or what the.
Is it like a cast iron?
Yeah.
Texas?
That makes sense.
I don't know. Yeah.
You think they're cooking steaks on that, or is that more like breakfast?
Well, we always cook up frog legs when we win. I say always because we don't win very often, but yeah.
Hopefully they're not cooking up the opposite.
Horse. Yeah. Hopefully it's not going both ways. That's not great.
All right. Let's jump to NFL.
Yeah.
Enough college football. You want to go through each game like we did last time, Glenn?
Yeah, let's try and then some of these obviously we'll get into a little more, but yeah, let's go through them.
All right, we were just talking about Shanahan and San Francisco. That was the Thursday night game, 30-12 over the Giants.
Honestly, I didn't even watch much of it. It was just kind of a dominant performance again by the Niners. They look like a well-oiled machine offensively and defensively. I think only thing with them is going to be the red zone. Scoring touchdowns in the red zone as opposed to selling for field goals. Yeah. I think they're right in the middle of the pack right now, but
Do you believe in Purdy being legit, like, or is it just what we were talking about earlier, where he's just kind of a product?
I believe in what J.J was saying earlier in Kyle Shanahan's scheme and the ability to maximize. Just production from a quarterback standpoint, given the weapons that they have and his play calling ability in their scheme.
What I think Brock Purdy does really, really well is execute the Kyle Shanahan offense. And so is he the most wildly talented guy? No. But he appears, every time I turn on the television, he appears to be accurate with the ball, hit and find the open receiver. And you guys, I know you guys know, like, I'm into analytics. He has had some luck in not throwing interceptions when they should have been picks. So do I think that there could be a little regression? Absolutely. But the system and the weapons they have around him, there was a stat yesterday, EPA, which is just basically this idea of how many yards turned into points happen. They had 25 points essentially created on just run after the catch.
Yeah.
So that's Purdy finding the open guy, hitting him accurately, and then letting those guys do what they do. Tua's the other guy that's kind of had that same sort of unique EPA after the catch because of Tyreek Hill and those other guys, but it's the same system.
Interestingly enough, Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan, I mean, are there two better play callers in the NFL?
For my money right now, no. And again, what do they have? They've got outstanding athletes, they've got a great scheme, and they've got quarterbacks that their best talent is accuracy.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't apply everywhere, and it's not the only way to win. But when you pair all that stuff together, it's certainly a lethal combination, and they've kind of figured it out in those two places right now.
Yeah. Well, and you got Debo that you can just throw a little snap pass to on 3rd and 18 and get a first down. And I mean,
huge benefit to the quarterback. There's no doubt about it, right? And even though San Francisco missed on Trey Lance, like, they've got the advantage right now. They've got a quarterback making $700,000, and the scheme allows him to play much higher than that. Probably, like, he's playing like a 35, 40, $45 million quarterback. They're paying him $700,000, and they pay all the other incredible athletes, and they just go. And that's a huge advantage that they can hang on to it. They're going to be good for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Daniel Jones, anything to worry about there, Blanche, or just patience?
I think we talked a little bit about regression. I think that was natural for the Giants this year. Definitely a little bit of patience with Daniel early this year. I think Daboll's a great play caller. I think he's a great coach. But I think the Giants were destined to sort of regress to the mean this year. I mean, you look at what he did in the second half against the Cardinals. There's still talent there. There's still the ability to get hot. And, so I wouldn't necessarily worry about them. They were overmatched on Thursday night. Simple as that. I think sometimes that's just the way it is.
Cool. All right, next one. Chargers 28 at Minnesota 24. It was a good game. Herbert played amazing, 40 of 47 for 405 yards. I know we talked about him last week with the quote from some JJ. I don't know if you saw this quote. Some AFC scouting director basically added Herbert in the Chargers and was like, he's got elite talent, but he's not an elite quarterback. So I'm glad he went out there and played like that.
Yeah, I think every piece of data says that he's an elite quarterback. I haven't looked at the exact numbers through week 3, but I bet you, I know through week 2 he was one of the highest in completion percentage over expected. Basically, meaning is he completing Is he completing passes he should at a rate better than he should, and he is. Yeah. He's also wildly talented, and I think the Kellen Moore offense, which I think had a good amount of success in Dallas.
Yeah, it's going to suit him well.
It suits what he does well, and I'll be able to pull it up by the end of the show. But like, yeah, he's impressive. Like, he's super talented, and I think their system's probably a little bit better suited for him than it's been in the last few years. Again, NFL is a very connected system. You can't just be good. Like, I think we've seen a little bit with Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen, equally super talented. Brian Daboll was there, and they were putting up crazy numbers. Maybe regressed a little bit, but he played unbelievable in week 3. So, like, play caller, quarterback, team, like, it's all interconnected. We can't just say, hey, one guy's good or bad based on one or two pieces of information.
You gotta try and look at the whole picture. Was the offensive
absolutely
line?
But if you're looking for those guys, those 5 or 7 guys worthy of getting paid all that money, you got to put Josh Allen in it. You got to put Justin Herbert in it. Like, that becomes incredibly clear, because that level of talent, you can't reacquire it.
It's sort of the difference maker when all else is equal.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you guys know, sometimes the other team's got a better scheme than you for that, and they got you figured out. And having those guys that are unique in that way bail you out of some tough spots. That's why they're making all the money that they're making.
Yeah, 2 more quick things. I want to get number 1. I know as an analytics guy, you'll love this word, but is the Vikings struggles this year? Can you just put it down to the word variance?
It's regression to the mean. They're 11-0 in 1-score games. They're 0-3 this week. We play them this week, so I hope it's 0-4.
No.
Yeah,
I hope it's more than.
I think Kirk Cousins. What's that?
I said I hope it's more than a 1-score win.
Yeah,
I don't even want that stat to apply.
But if you told me they were 0-4 in 1-score games after this week, then we will have won, and I was good with it.
Yeah.
Look, I think Minnesota won 13 games last year, and I think they had barely over a positive point differential. Like, when you talked about the Giants, they were 9-8. They actually gave up more points than they scored. Typically, Vegas looks at those sorts of things, yards per play, to kind of predict the future. But anyone can get hot, or anyone can get some good luck or the right bounce of the ball. But Minnesota is still good. They probably weren't 13 wins last year, and they're not an 0-3 team this year. I mean, the truth is it's somewhere in the middle, probably in both cases. Kirk Cousins is still playing really good football. But the ball hasn't bounced their way as much this year. And again, hopefully they can get it going better for them, but after this week.
That's right.
Because we'd like to get rolling too.
That's right. And then my other question about that game is 4th down, own whatever it was, 4th and 1.
Yep.
I know what the book says.
Yep.
But I mean, how do you not trust your defense there, regardless of what the book says? Is it just like this is what the numbers say, so I'm going to do it? Like, I mean, sure. From your perspective, why do you do that regardless of what the book says? Because their defense had played decently. I mean, 24 points is
right,
but they had just made a goal line stop. It's like, do you want to test your luck again?
Walk us through the whole scenario, and I'm going to try to pull up the exact down and distance and time. But JJ, I'm sure you know the percentages and stuff. I remember seeing it on ESPN.
Yeah, so I don't remember all the exact particulars, but basically what you're dealing with there is the Chargers have a 4-point lead. So you're defending. I think Staley referred to it this way: you're defending 4 points. You're not defending 3. So the math says you go for it there, for a couple. And here's the reasons why. First of all, the percentage of converting a 4th and 1 are very high. And by converting it, if I remember correctly, the game was over. I think Minnesota might have been out of timeouts.
All right, so on 3rd and 11, Minnesota took their last timeout, a minute 51 left. So it's 4th and 1 at
So
Chargers
you convert.
24.
So the easiest math is this. What percentage of the time do you convert 4th and 1? So let's say that's 75%. Would you say that's a fair number?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you convert, you win 75% of the games. You also have this advantage of 2, and this is why the math starts going kind of crazy this way. is the defense can still make a stop if you give the ball up. And because they don't have timeouts, but you do, they could also score a touchdown. You get the ball back and go down the field, kick the ball, go into overtime, or go down and score a touchdown and win the game. So when you start looking at what are the odds of us converting this and winning, I think the odds of them converting it plus all those other things, like the win probability was about 86, 87%.
Yeah.
But by punting, they're still going to win most of the games that they punt the ball away in.
Yeah.
But here's the downside. When you punt the ball away, they're going to use up almost all of the clock going down if they score. So not only can they still beat you, and they're not going to settle for a field goal. Like Staley talked about defending 4, not 3.
No.
On defense, I'd rather defend 3 and not 4, because I know that at some point that offensive coach is going to say to themselves, I don't want to blow the field goal, and I'm going to pump the brakes. Defending 4, it's 4 downs and it is full steam ahead. There's a very emotional connection with offensive play callers not wanting to risk getting a field goal off when a field goal would tie the game. And as a special teams guy, I see this all the time. I've stopped telling. Now Chris Tabor's here. He's really good and he understands this. But we would never tell offensive play callers what the number is for our kicker. Because what they'll do is, let's say the yard line is the 40-yard line, a 58-yard field goal. Mm-hmm. I've seen way too many play callers. They get the ball inside the 40, say it's the 38, and then they essentially put their hands up and say, go kick it.
I did my job.
And it's your fault if you miss it. And
I have a memory of, I want to say it was 2018. I can't remember for sure, but it might have been you guys against the Giants.
Yep.
And Gano, did he make that kick? I can't remember.
He made it. We told Ron.
And it stopped.
We told Ron, hey, he's good from 65 going in that direction. And the offense got the ball basically just barely past midfield. I think we got to the plus 45, which would have been the kick. And there was craziness going on, and Graham bailed us out of the whole thing. But there was definitely an element of, I don't know what everyone's complaining about. We got into field goal range, and we're like, that's a 10% kick.
I'm not telling you. I'm not opening my mouth again. I'm not telling you my range.
Absolutely. Like, get as close as you can get while taking reasonable risk. So I bring that all up because by defending 4, the Vikings would have been way more aggressive, as they obviously were. They had to take shots into the end zone. I don't think Kirk throws that pick if they're trying to play for 3, right? Yeah. But he knows he's got to throw it. At some point, he's got to get the ball in the end zone. Yep. So that's the advantage for the Chargers. I can end the game with a 1-yard run or pass or whatever, right? There's no risk in doing either or. You got the whole playbook. Yep. The game's over if you convert. And the defense can still defend 4. And if they score quickly, you can take the ball back and get the game into overtime or win. So there's a lot of benefit there. And my guess is the break-even yard line would probably been about 4th and 3 would be where it's probably a coin flip. But Staley's taken a lot of heat for some of these decisions. But, I mean, to me, that one was overwhelmingly obvious you go for it.
Yeah, I would
overwhelmingly.
I know you would have, but you are.
I love putting my long snapper out there and just letting it rip and just booming one.
Yeah, just punt one.
All right, moving on. Well, I'm sure there'll be another analytics scenario that Burst can question you about as we go. Browns, Titans. Browns dominated the Titans. Not much to say there.
Browns are far and away the best defense in the league.
They're playing great defense.
Did you see the Garrett sack at the end of the half?
Yeah,
I saw the play where he was motioning on defense, and the Titans were trying to match him, and they got to delay a game. That's somebody playing free.
He's a game changer.
Yeah, he sure is. He's unbelievable.
Glanch, did you see the Deshaun Watson play?
Yes, I did.
What was he thinking, that he was facing the other way?
No clue. No, I don't know. I am not gonna. I don't know what he was thinking.
Let me paint the picture for the listeners. He was scrambling to his right, getting rushed out of the pocket. I think he was wrapped up, and he kind of spun around, and it looked to me like he was trying to just throw it away and avoid a sack, but he threw it completely backwards, like on a straight line backwards, like a pass. And it was a fumble, obviously. And luckily the Browns running back, I think, picked it up, but God, it was terrible looking.
Yeah, Jim Schwartz has those guys playing great on defense. You're right, JJ.
He's been historically a great defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Everywhere he's gone, his teams have had success. And I mean, I was looking at some numbers. Like the Browns, they're not just the best defense. They're like the Dolphins offense of defense. I mean, it's way beyond what anyone else has done through 3 weeks. So kudos to them.
Did they play each other?
The angry little man's got him playing good.
Hopefully, that'd be a great matchup.
Yeah.
What you got next, Spurs?
Buffalo dominated at Washington, 37-3. Josh Allen played great again.
Touched on that. Josh played great. They still when Josh plays good, they're I mean, it's they're very, very hard to beat.
The challenge, I think, for Josh Allen is the sort of gunslinger quality. The upside is so good. I think the challenge with any coach would be, how do we harness that and not the turnovers? Because when he plays well, they're unstoppable. That offense is unstoppable when he plays well. So you gotta keep turning him loose.
Yeah, I saw a great. Orlovsky had a great little clip on Sunday afternoon, evening, talking about how different he looks when they go under center play action, and he's able to. It's like it just calms his mind down, and he's able to just go, all right, 1, 2, check down, as opposed to just being overly aggressive and pushing the ball down the field. And like you said, those highs and those lows, if we can just temper those a little bit, then he's still so good.
I don't know what it's like playing quarterback, but I just know I know what I see on the field, and then I kind of see the data. Like, if I'm a quarterback, I'd want to be under center as often as possible, because to me, assuming the right down and distance, to me, there's such an advantage in the defense, at least having to consider the possibility of running. I would think it would clean a lot of stuff up for most quarterbacks.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would want to be in shotgun and just run around. Let me run in space.
The advantage is Josh Allen can do both. He probably doesn't need one or the other, but I would.
You are the definition of a contrarian.
Hey, it's probably why I didn't play quarterback.
Move along.
Also, because I couldn't really throw. New Orleans 17, Green Bay 18 at Lambeau. That was a good game.
Guys, that was an analytic move too.
They're going for 2, down 14, right?
So they went for 2, down 4.
Yeah. You score to make yourself down 8.
Yeah, so I think it was 17-3. They scored to make it 17-9. They went for 2, got it, and then won the game with a touchdown PAT later. And this hasn't happened all that often. A few times teams have done this, but the number, I think it's only once or twice where teams have done it, successfully converted the 2, and won the game by 1. A few times I think teams have done it, and then
JJ,
1 or 2 things happened. It didn't really impact the game.
Explain the scenario exactly.
So
and why?
Traditionally, old school football, you're down 14, you score a touchdown, you kick the PAT, you go down 7, touchdown PAT, you go tie the game, you go to overtime. Or occasionally teams would go for 2 to win the game versus going to overtime.
Yep.
As they played out all of the mathematical elements to this, the better option to do is to go for 2 when you score that first touchdown, to go from 14 to 8 and then 8 to 6. And the reason being is if you get it, and it's 50-50 shot reasonably. If you get the game to 6, then a touchdown and PAT wins it, which is what you're gunning for, because tying the game only makes the game about a coin flip, likely going to overtime. Or what happens a lot is you tie the game, there's 30 seconds left, the other team gets the ball and they go down, kick a field goal, and they beat you. Right? So even if you tied the game, you're then kicking the ball off, and even though you've tied it, you're still more likely to lose than to win. With this move, this analytical move, going for it from touchdown to 8, going for the PAT, the 2-pointer, and going to 6, If you get it, now the opportunity is the PAT causes the win or to take the lead. But if you miss it, there's still another chance to tie the game, which was what you would be probably playing to do anyways on the by going for one each time. So the advantage comes in that it's almost like a free opportunity to take the lead, with the downside being, you could lose on 2-point conversions. But if teams do it well, an 8-point game is really a 2-score game half the time because you're going to miss the PAT. So really good analytic teams, if they miss the 2-point conversion the first time, will treat it like a 2-score game to save themselves time, that if they miss the 2-point for a second time, they've left themselves a little bit of time to onside kick and kick a field goal to win. And it's just creating a little bit of margin for victory. And obviously it was perfectly executed by Green Bay. It's not always perfectly executed, but that's football.
Perfectly executed because the Saints missed a field goal. But yes, they did give themselves the best chance to win.
Right. Like it worked out. They got the 2 first, they got the PAT on the second time. And then, then the Saints missed the kick. But
how much
JJ, isn't there an element to it of at some point in the game you start implementing the strategy, or is it throughout the entire game?
I've seen it both ways. I think the question you have to ask yourself is how many possessions are left in the game. Yeah. I think if there's a ton of possessions left in the game, the value probably isn't as high. And you guys could speak on this. Most teams are not carrying 4, 5, 6 2-point conversions into a game. So I think coaches are typically trying to save. Like if you were down 14 in the second quarter, I don't know that you're going to get a lot of 2-point conversions in the second quarter, because you'd like to save those plays maybe for the end of the game. But I think you get down in that 2 or 3 possessions left, anything in the fourth quarter there's probably some value. And then the only time I probably wouldn't do it is if you're probably inside the last 2 minutes, because the odds of you getting, let's say you missed the 2-point conversion, the odds of you getting the ball back and getting those 2 possessions in case you miss another 2-point conversion, there's just not a lot of time left. Yeah. So you'd be almost better off doing it reverse, kicking the PAT first. And if we score at the end of the game, do we go for 2 and just end it here?
Yeah.
But I think the perfect window for this analytic is kind of between like 3 and 10 minutes left in the game, because there's still some ways to sort of manipulate your time.
So fourth quarter. You're not doing this in the
definitely fourth quarter, maybe late third, maybe depending on the flow of the game. Not all 60 minutes are made the same. I've played in games with 14 possessions, and I played in games with 6 possessions. Yeah. Possessions matter more than time, and so you kind of have a flow and a feel for how quickly the game's moving.
How many times are we going to get the ball back? Actually,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear, like, as a casual fan that watches on TV, and they're like, "Wait, why is the coach doing this?" It's interesting to see, like, you break it down working backwards, right? Like, the scenarios, the what if scenarios to end a game, and you work backwards to where
the ultimate game. And I think the biggest deal is, right, like, the ultimate game is the ultimate goal is to win, and not only win, but win in regulation. And so how do you maximize your chance to win in regulation? Because once you get to overtime, you may not see the ball. There's too many extenuating factors. And I think that's kind of the new school way of thinking, as much as I tried to push back against analytics.
The reality is, like, the NBA didn't like the 3-point shot because you missed a lot of them, until the analytics came in and said, hold on, there is value to shooting a bunch of these, especially at some rate of success. I think what you're finding is natural human emotion. Coaches are bound by natural human emotion. And one of those feelings is loss aversion. So coaches are typically trying to avoid losing, or, like, the way we always say it is, like, delay losing. So if I can kick a PAT and be down 7, everyone feels good, and the coach doesn't feel like a decision has been made that has cost his team.
Yeah.
What I think these analytics are giving coaches protection and saying, I'm trying to win, and I'm putting my team in the best position to win. And yes, there is a risk that comes with it. But there's also a risk in doing it the opposite way. Like, again, kicking 2 PATs, the risk is they get the ball back and kick a field goal to beat you, and you never threaten them to take the lead. Or you go to overtime and you never get the ball back. But coaches in those situations would have normally said, well, we just didn't have enough time, or they got the ball. But I think what you're seeing is these smart people that are looking at these opportunities are saying, no, you can positively affect the game in a real way as a coach with your decision making. And I think that's why you're seeing this evolution more towards taking more reasonable risk, because it's actually benefiting the team and not hurting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Next game. Well, let's go through these quickly because I want to get to the other stuff in the episode. Detroit 20, Atlanta 6. I know y'all play Detroit in 2 weeks.
In a couple weeks. And Detroit's good. They got a good offensive system. If their defense plays that well, they'll be good. And I'm obviously not upset that Atlanta and New Orleans lost, because we need those guys to lose more.
No doubt. I think that Atlanta's a tough one just because they're so talented around that quarterback. If they can get Ritter playing well, they'll be pretty scary. But that's obviously right now that's an if. I mean, what are they 2-1 now? They managed to win their first 2, and then they got obviously handled by the Lions. So
yeah, Atlanta's advantage is if they can play neutral or with the lead, that plays into their strengths. I think if they fall behind, that's a much tougher road for them to play from.
Yeah,
it's like my college career, running the triple option.
Yeah,
impossible to play from behind. You just auto L. All right, Houston won 37-17 at Jacksonville.
Surprising the way Jacksonville's looked, and Stroud looked great.
Stroud's played really well. I think he's off to sort of a historic rookie start.
Yep. And
special teams love fullback returned a squib kick for a touchdown. Or I'm not sure if it was a squib. It might have just been a miss hit, but pretty impressive. Never seen that before in my life.
It was just a short kick, and I think he actually dropped it and then picked it up and took it all the way to the house. It was impressive, and for him to outrun everybody.
I think I saw he almost hit 21 miles an hour. That's really impressive for a ball carrier who was also a fullback.
Adrenaline was running.
Yeah,
no doubt.
One thing, JJ, I think Houston's OC is a Shanahan guy, so I'd be curious.
Bobby Slovic.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Yes, and so I mean, it'll be interesting to watch as Stroud develops and his progression within that similar style of offense.
It would certainly, my understanding, watching a little bit of college and then reading kind of about him, it certainly seems like a good fit, right? Like Stroud was kind of known as the accurate player, get the ball out on time. Like that was where his value is. And that, again, goes back to pairing. That might've been a really good pairing. So it's most rookies struggle no matter how good they are. It's always kind of cool to see a young guy play well coming out, because, NFL's hard, and young guys you usually go to bad teams and there isn't a lot around you. So when they get off to a good start, that's usually at least a decent sign that you got something going there.
Yeah.
I think Houston's going to be well coached, going to be better than people think. New England 15 at Jets 10. Glance, your old team.
15 in a row for the Pats over the Jets.
That's insane for a divisional rivalry.
Especially, and every game's been about, I say every game. In recent memory, every game's been about like that. In 2021, the Jets weren't very good. And I was up there. We blew them out twice, or beat them handily twice. Last year, both games were exactly like this. It's hard for the Jets right now. I don't know. It's tough for them right now. There was so much excitement going into this year, and kind of went out the window in 4 plays. And Garrett Wilson is a fellow Lake Travis Cavalier. I know he was very excited to play with Aaron, and I don't know. It's just hard for those guys. I mean, I will say this: they invested a lot in Aaron, and the offensive line has been bad. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback.
Yeah,
like really bad.
Historically,
The challenge that the Jets are dealing with is they were a team that essentially brought in Aaron to solve problems that they already had. And great quarterback, Tom Brady last year in Tampa Bay, offensive line was not particularly good, but Tom solved a lot of their problems, got the ball out quick, gets them into good stuff. I mean, they essentially traded for and paid Aaron all that money to solve the problems. Then he gets hurt. Those problems still exist. And the one person that could have solved them is no longer there. It stinks for the Jets. Football is better when the Jets are good, the Giants are good. Like that stuff matters. And then obviously such a legendary quarterback like Aaron being out, that's not good for anybody.
Yeah, we can get more into the Zach Wilson stuff there later. It's a tough situation.
All right, next game, Miami 70, Denver 20.
They are really fun to watch on offense. I mean, Tua's got weapons all over the place. Mike McDaniel's as creative as they get. I'll let JJ weigh in there a little bit too.
70 points. Look, I think Miami's really, really good. They are playing to their strengths. They're obviously fast. They've got a quarterback that's wildly accurate. McDaniel, I think, is fantastic. And, it's all meshing together. Now, it's 3 weeks and teams are going to keep figuring things out. And sometimes we've all been part of those games on both sides where it's like they're blowouts. Now, 70-20 is uniquely bad. And it felt like Miami, I don't want to say they're running it up, but they kept running their offense in the fourth quarter. Like they weren't running the clock out. So, but again, Mike White came in and he was slinging the ball over the yard and there were still guys running free. What I think McDaniel does really well and Shanahan does this really well, and I know every coach is trying to do this, but it just feels like those guys are really good at it, is figuring out what your rules are on defense and then designing plays to break them so that when you play correctly, you're wrong. I think that is a impressive skill. I think you're always hoping to challenge the other team, but the idea that you would play your defense correctly and be hurt by that that's tough. I mean, that's really, really tough to go against. And so they've done it really well. And then, again, I'm impressed with Mike McDaniel. He is a very impressive play caller.
Yeah, he's been very good.
It's impressive to me, going back to the team we were just talking about, the New England defense last week, I think, was it week 2 against Miami?
Mm-hmm.
They made that offense look nothing like a 70-point offense. And I was talking about Gonzalez, that rookie corner, who shadowed Cheetah the whole game. Yeah. I don't know if you saw, but Cheetah came out this week with a quote complimenting how good Gonzalez is. So I know we're talking about Miami's offense, but New England's defense.
I think he's one of the top ranked corners in the league through 3 weeks. And
yes, he looks very impressive. And New England's defense is schematically very impressive. I mean, they obviously lost McCourty, but other than that, they're pretty similar. I know Devin's a big piece, but it'll be impressive. It'll be fun to watch how their defense progresses this year because I think they have a chance to be really good again. I thought of that too when 24 points is a good performance, but like you said, they were for the most part held in check.
Yeah. That division is stacked. Can you imagine if Aaron Rodgers didn't get hurt? All 4 of those teams are playoff teams. Indy 22 at Baltimore 19 in overtime. That was surprising.
Baltimore.
Sorry, I'm charging my phone here. Not usually too many games where there's a small kicker storyline that includes Justin Tucker and he's not the storyline, but Matt Gay had an impressive day. It would look like really, really gross conditions.
Is it 5 field goals that he made?
I think he had 4 over 50.
Yeah.
So not just 5 chip shots. I mean, that's an impressive day. And there was a great article. I'm trying to remember who wrote it, but basically Matt Gay started in Tampa, went to LA, was great, and now he's with the Colts. And the title of the article was "You're probably drafting somebody else's kicker." And Matt Gay has become a little bit of the poster child of this. And there's been a few others, but it takes specialists usually a couple stops to figure it out. Remember Matt Gay was run out of Tampa because he missed that kick versus the Giants. I think it was the Giants 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe Daniel Jones's like first start. And they wanted him out of there real fast. He's one of the all-time highest percentage kickers in NFL history now. Some of these guys, it just takes a couple iterations, a couple years to develop. I mean, it's a developmental position like every other spot. So good for him. 5 for 5 and 4 over 50 is pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see. Y'all's game in Seattle, kind of back and forth a little bit. Obviously, playing without Bryce.
All right, highlight of the game. We can talk about a lot of stuff. JJ's tackle.
Yes.
Can we talk about that?
DJ Dallas, kind of their returner, big north and south guy, kind of ran me over. But it was a full wrap up now.
Oh.
In 2012, it's kind of like that. 2012, Kuechly showed up. He was a rookie that year, and I remember about 8 weeks in, he probably had like 100 tackles for like 8 games. And I walked over to him like literally in the middle of a game, and I was like, "How do you tackle so well?" His exact words were, "I just wrap my arms around his waist and hang on for dear life." Now, it's a little more impressive than that, but that's the strategy I use, which is wrap around his waist and hang on for dear life. And it got him down. Like, I still think he got 2 yards as he was kind of falling on top of me, but I got him down. So I'm using it.
You stopped the explosive. That's all you got to do.
I did stop the explosive as my back and head were hitting the turf.
JJ, your job's to snap. Anything else is gravy.
Gravy.
Yeah, it's usually snap, protect, and then don't get hurt. But every once in a while, they start breaking the first line or two of coverage, and it's like it's on me or nobody else. So I was happy to help out the team a little bit. But it was a good game. It was a good game in Seattle. Got away from us a little bit there at the end, but I thought Andy played really well. Dalton, TCU guy, and Thielen played really well, and our defense just been really banged up. We've lost 2 or 3 really important starters, and it was kind of the first kind of crack in the defense. But I think by the end of the game, we only had like 3 opening day starters on the field. So hopefully those guys will start getting healthy. But depth in the NFL is so important because there's always guys banged up. You got next guy up is real.
And difficult to achieve when there's limitations on how many guys you can actually have. I mean, it's hard to put together a team, especially when there's guys banged up. But obviously, you got the 7 inactives, and then how do you field a 2 deep, from that standpoint, and still get, 5 receivers dressing, 2 or 3 running backs, and guys to play special teams, and then play offense and defense. So yeah, it's
so much value in being able to play multiple positions on offense and defense. But when you start having the same injuries at the same positions, that's when it really strains you, because now you're really kind of dipping into maybe practice squad players or something, guys who are probably a year or 2 away and still needing development. And all of a sudden, you're in an NFL game, and that's always a challenge. But that's every team, right? And every team's got to manage it. It's not an excuse, but it is a challenge.
Yeah. All right.
We're gonna knock these out quick, because I want to hear the JJ Jansen story. Arizona 28, Dallas 16. That was surprising.
Yeah, well, 1 for 5 in the red zone for Dallas. That's something they got to button up. Arizona's been they've been in every game. Everyone kind of wrote them off at the beginning of the year, and they've been in all 3 games and had a chance. That's been impressive to watch what Gannon's done there so far.
I don't think anyone needs to worry about Dallas. I think they're a good team, and I think their offense and defense are really good. I'll be curious to see how, with Diggs out, what happens long term. But good teams have bad games on the road, and to your point, Arizona was not expected to be good, but they've had a 4th quarter lead in all 3 games. Yeah. So they're either punching above their weight or they're better than everyone thought. And so, again, I don't think it's the end of the world for Dallas, and Arizona's gotten off to a good start, I think.
Okay. The Taylor Swift game, 41-10, Chiefs over the Bears.
Is there anything else to say outside of how bad is Chicago and Taylor Swift was there?
No. I don't think so.
I don't think I'm unique in this. Like, I don't feel like that relationship's going the whole way. And the album coming out of it is going to be an absolute banger. So I'm here for all of it.
You're here for chaos.
I'm rooting for chaos. I don't want anything bad to happen, but I feel like
best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
I feel like 2025 Taylor Swift World Tour is going to be unbelievable.
And you can't tell. Here's a conspiracy for you, but it's not even a conspiracy. I think it's just factual. You can't tell me it's a coincidence that they start dating and then he's all of a sudden the poster boy for Pfizer. Come on.
And Bud Light and T-Mobile. Oh, it's definitely there's a whole orchestrated
Hollywood
thing.
Yeah.
It's a PR blizzard.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
We're not cutting. Blanche, stop blushing. We're not cutting that out. We're blasting that to the masses.
I'm good. This is just
it's all orchestrated. Like football teams have game plans, PR marketing firms have game plans. This whole thing is well coordinated.
It was part of the script that the
NFL
writers wrote for the year.
That's right.
Who's it? Key? The guy from Key and Peele?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't love the NFL. They stole that from the Jaguars, which was awesome. Their schedule release. I didn't like the NFL just stealing it because the Jaguars one was great.
I didn't see that.
Oh, go watch the schedule release from Jacksonville. Whatever that was, April. It was great. It was like 8 minutes, and it was really funny, really clever. I wish the NFL hadn't stolen that one. They should just let the Jaguars keep it. It was good.
All right, Pittsburgh 23, Las Vegas 18.
Quick analytics deal there. Why in the world did they kick at the end of the game?
Terrible decision.
They did it twice, and it cost them like 4 or 5 percentage points.
Yeah.
Like, you still have to score a touchdown.
Like, I understood the first kick. You're down 8. There's no guarantee of getting the 2-point conversion. So, hey, it's a long 4th down conversion. There's still a bunch of time. Let's kick the field goal. Now we've got some options. We kick off. We onside kick. Totally good with it. It's probably a coin flip. Quick lesson on analytics. If it's anywhere close to a coin flip, it's always a kick for NFL coaches. They want to kick the ball. Penalty happens. They take the points off the board. I don't disagree with that, but it's a new situation now. 3 minutes later, closer to the end zone, closer conversion. The stuff that I would like to see coaches do a little bit more is when they make those mistakes, just own up and say, I made a mistake. What inevitably happens is coaches get up there and they say, hey, I did what I thought was best to win the game. And that would be like the guy on Notre Dame's D-line who didn't go out on the field going, I thought what I did was best for the team. Like, no one actually believes that. But coaches sometimes can get in the press conference because that wasn't a coin flip. That wasn't a 50-50. I'm not sure what to do. Like, that was overwhelmingly, you got to go for it to put your team in the best position to win. And I didn't see that. He might have said, hey, I messed up. But I've seen that a lot where coaches just go, I was doing what I thought was best. And as a player, I'm looking there saying, that wasn't what was best. And that wasn't even close.
All right, JJ. So we talked about it earlier, the casual fans watching these scenarios. And sometimes they're confused. Like, I'm used to them kicking the extra point. I'm used to them punting here. Why did they go for it? And then we end up finding out the sheet, the analytics say they go for it. So the fans watching this, and they're like, why did they kick the field goal? I guess the analytics say to kick it, but it doesn't. So what was the reasoning by the coach? Because the casual fan would even go for it.
I have no idea. The only piece of information he might have used is said, I am uncomfortable trying to go for 2, so I know it's a 2-score game. Like, I don't think we're going to get a 2-point conversion, even if we do score. And again, I think coaches tend to try to avoid or delay losing. So if he goes for it there and he misses, he's down 8. I'm not sure how much time was left. We were on the plane coming home. Like, I saw kind of the aftermath. And the game probably feels over. Where I kick the field goal, I make it. Now I can kick off. I can onside kick. Like, I feel like I'm still in the game. But the reality was his best chance of winning was to try to convert and then ultimately score a touchdown because you're running out of time. Like, there weren't options. The first kick, you can kick the ball deep, you can get the ball back, and now you're going for the win because you're only down 5.
Yeah.
But the second situation, you're basically down to 1 possession. You got to maximize your opportunities. You have to score a touchdown at least to even tie the game. So to get that close to the goal line and then kick, even if you got everything worked out great, you still got to go all the way back down the field and score.
Yeah.
So looking at it, it was 2 minutes and 25 seconds when they kicked it. And I think
how many timeouts they have?
They had all 3 timeouts and the 2 minute. So
that's probably what. And what was it? 4th and what?
3, I think.
4.
Okay, yeah.
4th and 4. Yeah, that's probably he's delaying losing, right? So I'm going to kick the field goal. I'm going to kick the ball off. I'm going to use my timeouts on the other side of the 2-minute warning. And I'm betting, again, this is gut versus math. My gut is our defense stops them. We get the ball back with a minute 40 or whatever it would have probably worked out to be, maybe minute 50 or something like that. I'm betting on our defense. Just, you have to score a touchdown to win, and you're so close. And the 4th and 3, 4th and 4 conversions are like 50% conversions.
Yeah.
So it's not a hard conversion relative to what you're asking your defense to do.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, last night's game.
Real quick on those 2. Real quick on those 2 last night's games is what I was going to say.
Philly 25, Tampa Bay 11, and then Rams 16, Cincinnati 19.
I know you like seeing another NFC South opponent with a loss. Obviously, that is good for the Panthers. Eagles look good. They don't necessarily look quite as explosive as they did last year. And, it's still early in the season. And then Bengals they found a way to squeak one out finally. But for most of the game, they didn't look like the same. They still don't look like the same team as we've seen. Now, again, Philly's undefeated, so not much to say there. I just don't know that they necessarily look quite as explosive as they did last year.
I would agree, Phil. But I think their defense is a little bit better than it started out last year. So they're 3-0.
Yeah,
first time in like 30 years that they've been 3-0. So they're feeling good. And I feel like the Bengals are just trying to survive Burrow for now, and hoping that by the time November, December gets here, he's healthy. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs because of him, but they have not looked the same either.
Yeah. And that is the NFL for the weekend. JJ, I know you got to get out of here. Unfortunately, our producers gave us a script that was a little too long this week, and so we didn't get to everything we wanted to. So we'll throw them under the bus. But we do want to thank you for coming on. I think we learned a lot analytically, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time this morning. I know you got to get to the wife and kids on the off day. So thanks for spending some time with us.
This has been awesome. Anytime you guys want me on, I will.
That's what I was going to say. Would you be willing to come back? Okay.
I am in. Anytime you want me to explain why NFL coaches are messing stuff up, I'm happy to. But as we talked about Brandon Staley, I want to also defend NFL coaches who do it right. So
even
I
if it doesn't work out.
I'm like Burse. I'm very counter media, and I watched all the TV shows bashing Brandon Staley yesterday. And I thought it was the right decision. So these guys need to have someone to defend them when they make the right call. I'll be that guy.
Can we call you a friend of the program?
You absolutely friend of the program for sure.
All-time longest tenured Panthers player, J.J. Jansen. J.J., thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks, J.J. See you next time.
Later.